Hello, we're joined now by Chris Smith, President of Portland Transport. How's it going?
Great, great.
So I gather your session went pretty well earlier?
It did. Glad to have it out of the way. I can enjoy the show now, but yeah, we had a good time.
And we're here at OSCON talking about open source. In this case, though, you're talking about hardware. Can you tell me what the Transit Appliance Project is?
So I think by this time, everybody's familiar with the smartphone apps that will tell you when the next bus or the next train is coming, right? We see them in a variety of cities. Anywhere the transit agency has a real-time web service, there are usually a couple dozen apps by now. We're trying to take that back out of your pocket in your smartphone into the real world and have fixed location displays. Two reasons to do that. The first is not everybody is motivated to have a smartphone app and use it, so we want people to trip over this. It's sort of an ad to remind people that, you know, transit's here, it's convenient, there are more convenient ways to get around than using your car all the time. And then the second is then once you've reminded people the transit's there, actually tell them how to use it when that next vehicle's coming without ever having to take any proactive step. You're sort of a passive consumer at that point.
So you're essentially bridging the divide between the online world and the mobile world and the physical world.
Right. Providing one more place to get that information, and a big part of the project is to make it inexpensive to do that so it can be rolled out pervasively, and open source is a huge component of that.
And what kind of cost are we talking about here?
So our model is essentially to have inexpensive hardware installation and then no operating costs. So inexpensive hardware means, if you're familiar with the Chumby, which is actually an open hardware platform that I learned about at OSCON 5 or 6 years ago. It's sort of a smart digital photo frame that can talk to the internet. About $200 for one that's 8 inches, which is a perfect profile to sit next to the cash register at a coffee shop or brew pub and tell you when that next transit vehicle's coming. For applications where you need a bigger display, we can take a $200 Atom PC and hang that on the back of the HD TV or monitor of your choice. So we're using commodity hardware, and then the no operating cost model is part of it because we're using, in large part, the transit agency's web services, and then other cloud hosting. For the rest, it's very inexpensive.
You mentioned opening up transit data, and here in Portland, you're gifted with clearly a strong technology community, and in this case, a city government that's really worked to make this happen. How has releasing open transit data changed transportation in Portland for citizens? And in general, what would you say the returns are for a city government that makes that choice? Because there's lots of other cities that haven't done this yet.
Well, I can give a very concrete example. I serve on the board of Portland Streetcar Inc., which is the nonprofit that operates the streetcar, which is different than TriMet's light rail and buses. We do that under contract to the city of Portland. And we were faced with the challenge about 10 years ago when we first opened that we could either run a relatively tight schedule, about 12-minute between vehicles, or with some uncertainty. So we might be a minute early, we might be a minute late, or we could run a 14-minute schedule and always be on time. And we opted to run faster with that little bit of uncertainty, but then use technology to tell our customers when the vehicle was coming. So we put displays in the shelters and made the smartphone apps and the dial-in apps so you can do an IVR system that'll tell you when the vehicle is coming. So providing information basically gave us a better customer experience because we could tolerate a little bit of uncertainty by making that information available.
So one of the standards that seems to have gotten some traction is the GTFS standard. What does that mean to city transportation and the civic coders, and how do you see adoption moving forward?
Well, so there are actually some interesting parts to that. GTFS is the General Transit Feed Specification, and it's basically schedule data. So it will tell you when that bus or light rail vehicle is scheduled to arrive. And it also, for us, is very important because it has information about the stops and what lines serve what stops. We're working in the real-time space, so not when the vehicle is scheduled to be there, but where it is now and when do we have a prediction of when it will arrive, which may be different from the schedule. There's not a lot of standardization in that area yet. Google is starting to add some of those services to Google Maps, so we're seeing some standardization. But part of what our project has done is create an abstraction layer so that we read in the different AVL web services from different transit agencies, convert that to a standard JavaScript object, so a developer can build a UI on top of our platform, and it will work in Portland and San Francisco and Chicago and Boston, rather than with the smartphone apps where you're seeing a different app in every city because the real-time web service is different in every city.
All right, so there's some standardization, and that's something that can be adopted
Yes.
elsewhere. Okay. What other standards are you watching in this space?
I think the web services are the big one. We're really more tracking technologies. We have built our whole platform on JavaScript. So, we're utilizing whatever commodity hardware we have, getting a web browser on it, and then ultimately JavaScript and a loader app so that when you turn it on, it phones home, gets its configuration, displays it. So we're using some innovative technologies like CouchDB as our JSON data store. Node.js has been very important to us because some of the functions we have to run either on the server or on the client, and being able to run JavaScript on the server has been a tremendous boost to us. So we're probably more technology driven than data standard driven right now.
Okay. And then the last question, and it's a more open-ended. How else does open software contribute to Portland's transportation infrastructure?
Well, as you're familiar, the open data climate here is very, very good. And I was actually one of the first people knocking on TriMet's door back around 2007. They had put up Transit Tracker, which is their internal application on their website. I actually started scraping it, which is how so many open data projects start. Somebody's scraping your data off your website, and I went to them and said, I'd really like this as a web service. We could do some interesting things with it. Turns out there was a group led by Bibiana McHugh, who I'm sure you know inside, who was telling TriMet Management, we have this great data, we'd like to expose it. So together we teamed up on TriMet Management. As you know, they were one of the first transit agencies to go open with their data, and the smartphone apps, all the other things, and then the cities that have followed have been part of that. So I think that initial impetus to go open is just a transformative factor in so many organizations.
Well, it seems like Portland is continuing to lay claim to being one of America's top open source cities. So
we're committed to it.
See how it goes. Well, thank you so much.